Hi everyone. In the last lecture, we looked at how to multiply expressions using the FOIL method. And if you'll recall, the FOIL method was used to multiply two binomials together. And it stands for first, outer, inner, and last. So if we take two binomials and we try to multiply them, we can FOIL it. So we would multiply the first terms together, which would be 3x times 2x, which gives us 6x squared. And then our outer terms would be 3x times 5, which is 15x, and then plus 1 times 2x, which is 2x, and then 1 times 5, which is 5. And then we can combine like terms. 15x plus 2x gives us 17x. So our final answer in simplified form would be 6x squared plus 17x plus 5. So for example, if I was to take these two binomials, 5x minus 7 times x minus 2, and multiply them together, I would first multiply my first terms together, which would be 5x times x. And 5x times x gives us 5x squared. Then I would multiply my outer terms together, which would be 5x times negative 2. So that would give us negative 10x. And then I would have my inner term, which would be negative 7 times x. And then I would have my last term, which would be negative 7 times negative 2, which is positive 14. So my final answer in simplified form is 5x squared minus 17x plus 14. For letter B, I have a binomial squared, which remember actually means 3y minus 8 times 3y minus 8. A common mistake is to square the 3y and square the 8 and then write your answer, but that's incorrect. So make sure you write it out twice and then FOIL. So I'm going to multiply my first terms together. 3y times 3y gives me 9y squared. And then I'm going to multiply my outer terms, which would be 3y and negative 8. 3y times negative 8 is negative 24y. And then I would multiply my inner terms, which are negative 8 times 3y, which is also negative 24y. And then my last terms, negative 8 times negative 8, which is positive 64. And then again, I can look to combine like terms, and I get 9y squared minus 48y plus 64. So there's some tricks you can use and special techniques when you take problems like the one we just did, which is a binomial squared. You can still use FOIL, but there's also a formula that you can use for squaring a binomial, and this is referred to as a special product. So if you have a binomial and you're adding, and then you square that binomial, you can use this formula where you would take the first term and square it, take the two terms and multiply them together by 2, and then take the last term and square it. And the only difference with subtraction is that there's a minus in the middle. So for example here, if I was to take t plus 2 squared, okay, I have a binomial squared, it's a special product. So remember that what it really means is t plus 2 times t plus 2. So you could FOIL it if you wanted. Or what you could do is you could write down your A and your B. So if you refer back to here, my A is my first term here, which is t, and my B would be 2. And then my formula is right here. So since I'm adding, I'm going to use this formula. So all you do is you square the A term, you combine A and B together and double it. So we're going to have to multiply A times B together by 2. And then we square the last term, 2 squared. So we finally get t squared plus 4t plus 4, which is what you would get if you were to FOIL it. Okay, here's another example. So the only difference is it's a binomial where you're subtracting. So your a is 2x and your b is 5. So now I'm going to use this formula. So the only difference is you'll have a minus right here. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to square my a term. I'm going to put a minus sign and double the product of a times b, so 2x times 5. And then I'm going to square the last term. Remember when you square 2x, you have a product to a power, so you have to distribute the power. So it's going to be 2 squared, which is 4, and then x squared. And then if I multiply 2 times 2x times 5, I get 20x, and 5 squared is 25. And there's your final answer, which is what you would get if you were to FOIL it. There's another type of special product. It's called a sum and difference. So anytime you have a binomial where you have the same terms in each quantity, but one's an addition and the other's subtraction, what happens is the middle term cancels out. And here you're left with a squared minus b squared. So the square of the first term, and then it's always subtract, and then the square of the second term. So for instance, here I have x minus 1/3 times x plus 1/3. This is a sum and difference. Sum means add, difference means subtract, right? And we have the same terms in each parenthesis. So a shortcut is you can square the first term. So x, if I square that, I get x squared. You're always going to have a minus because a negative times a positive is a negative. And then you're going to square the last term. So remember, when you square 1/3, that's a quotient to a power. I have to distribute the power. So I'm going to have x squared minus 1 squared divided by 3 squared, which if we simplify that, we would get x squared minus 1/9. And that's pretty much it. So there's some problems that you can practice. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me.